All right, just a refresher, we have been talking about the major environmental problems and just somewhat defining them because each one of these will be its own chapter, so you know. So waste by definition.
Excess materials.
Excess materials that are
Harmful.
sometimes when they're harmful they become pollution, right? But excess material is harmful because what does excess material require? Space. It requires land. It's discarded somewhere, okay? At the end of the day, it's something you throw away that requires space in order to put there. Or you could recycle like they're doing here. These are all plastic water bottles or aluminum. Getting the difference between waste and pollution. You discard waste when the waste becomes something that's going to be harmful. Thank you. To another resource, like when the waste seeps chemicals into a water supply, or when the waste is burned and chemicals are being emitted into the atmosphere, then that's considered pollution if those chemicals are at a toxic level. So what are solutions to these problems? I listed them all, kind of gave you an overview of all of them, and there has to be some light, right, at the end of the tunnel. We're going to learn about all environmental problems. But the goal is so that we can figure out a way to live sustainable. And research suggests that it's going to take us a while, but if we don't get to it soon, we're going to get to tipping points for a lot of the problems that we have in the environment. So one of always the common answer to solutions of environmental science is reduce, reuse, recycle, which your page, luckily I screenshot it right at the appropriate moment. Don't forget that something you have to know is you can number those. Number 1, environmentally, is reduce. Number 2 is reuse. And number 3 is recycle. Can anybody explain that? If you reduce, you're eliminating needing to do the other 2. So it's the best solution. Stop doing it instead of, trying to make it better or trying to fix it. That's really what it's all about. And the key to environmental science, I'm going to just jump here for a minute, is prevention. At the end of the day, notice how I have reduce, reuse, recycle in the middle, and what's first? Eliminate. So don't do it.
Just interruption, Mr. Rango. Could I say something?
All right, so you want to, I'm going to tell you right now, I keep telling you there's going to be questions on the AP exam. I used to number them. Question 1, this is what a question. Prevention is always the answer and the solution to environmental science. So it's the most favorite option. Eliminate waste instead of reducing it. So like let's use stuff that's not going to produce that much is not as good as eliminate. Reuse things so that we don't produce it. Recycle them requires energy, time, money. And then obviously this is the worst, which would be just discarding it. All right, so other solutions, we'll come here. So topics we talked about, which we mainly focused on resource depletion because that's the biggest introduction. Later we get into all of them. Solutions to tragedy of the commons. Let's redefine this word, okay? What does it mean to be a common? Available land for public use, free, open access. Does that really exist? Not in the United States of America. Because when it did, it led to tragedy. What is the tragedy of a common? Waste, misuse, abuse, overuse, everything bad. You give us that free open access land and we're going to take and take, kind of like our lab yesterday with the fish, right? Who discovered that? That one scientist I told you had to know. Garrett Harding. You need to know that, okay? Unfortunately, there's some. So how do we eliminate tragedy of the commons? Or how did we? Because realistically, we did by doing these things. What do? Section off land. So you're going to give ownership to land. You're going to say, okay, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for that, right? What else? What do we do to our oceans? Did they say you can't boat there? Yes. So what is that? Restricting. Restricting and regulations. Tell me some restrictions of our oceans.
You can only fish
You can't fish a certain amount of fish. You can only have 3 of this fish. What else?
certain fish.
Certain fish are only allowed to be fished. What else? The size and weight of the fish. You want to make sure they're mature enough to reproduce and keep their population alive. All these regulations came into place because of overfishing. Okay, that's a big problem. And then we want to make sure always to use at a rate that will be existing for all future generations. So we want to use below the capacity. So let's look at sustainability again. And this is a picture straight from the back of your book. So there's 4 principles we want to look at when we're thinking of sustainability. Anybody can guess any of them? I'll take anything you see there that triggers thought. Sun, our reliance on solar energy, obviously. What else?
Natural.
Biodiversity, good. So we want to make sure that we are aware that variety and quantity of organisms is very important. What else is very important?
No hunting, like natural.
Which picture are you referencing? This one or this one?
The left one.
This one?
Yeah.
What's happening there?
Predator, prey.
Predator-prey. What happens in a predator-prey relationship?
Hunt each other. They eat.
They eat. What's happening?
They fuel each other.
They fuel each other. So cycling or flowing. So like matter cycling or energy flows is like nutrient cycling. We want to make sure we keep that in a path that can exist forever. And then what's the last one? What's the root cause of all environmental problems? So population control. Not because we want to step in, but because it's natural and it needs to happen. Because if one species overpopulates, it's going to affect every single thing below it or above it in terms of the food chain. So how do we live sustainable? Because we don't, by the way. We just don't, okay? So we want to look at how we live now, which is on this side of the chart, it's our current ways. This is straight from your book as well, but I always use it because I think it's important. So currently we clean up pollution because we have polluted waters and then we do this big cleanup, right? What should we do instead? Prevent it. And no, all the answers will not be prevent, okay? But that is a good answer. Instead of burying and burning waste, what should we do? Reduce, reuse, recycle. I would say all the 3s. Waste prevention. Don't throw it away. Reduce the amount of waste. Reuse the waste you have and try to do something else or recycle those products. Instead of protecting a species, what should we protect? Yes. Habitats. Good job. We should protect where they live. Okay? Instead of degrading our environment, we should preserve is great, or conserve is great too, or what are we doing now? We've destroyed habitats, guys. They're destroyed, right? To the point of they're gone. So what are we doing now? Let's think of our Everglades. Did we not build all over the Everglades? What's happening right now? Biggest environmental project in the history of environment. Restoration, I think. Yes. Environmental restoration, because we're at that point. That's like a tipping point. Increase resource use, less resource. This is a tricky one. No. But yes, of course we want to reduce our consumption. But if we use something, we should use it in a way that it's more what? Efficient. Good job. So smart. Less waste. So use light bulbs that provide you with the same light, but they don't release so much wasted energy. Those are things that we could do. Population growth. Control. I don't know about that one. Depleting and degrading natural capital. Instead of, we should preserve it, protect it. Good. Who can tell me what's a common thing in all my slides? They're green. There was a subliminal messages there I was trying to throw at you. It's not anything that you learn in this class is going to make a difference, okay? Because you're going to make little teeny weeny changes, and then you're going to talk to people, and they're going to make changes, and before you know it, we have a world of change. And that's what the point is. This class is about learning how you can make a difference, okay? And I end with that. Go green.